I'm going to explain this in a second, but for now, make sure that the middle button here is clicked on each channel. Now you can see a difference between these channels. Not every channel has the same features. In this case, Stereo In 4 and 5 are using my ADAT channels, which don't have the sweet spot morphing compressor that you see here in the first 3 channels on the left. This section here allows us to adjust the sweet spot morphing compressor. We can adjust the drive here, which adjusts how much the compressor will affect the sound. Below that is the morph button. To really see what this does, we need to open the effect editor. Click on the E here to open it up. You can see the drive control that we already messed with here. Right smack dab in the bottom middle is the morph button. Moving it back and forth, you can see that it's changing every single parameter, moving the compression from soft and subtle to hard and fast. It's even changing the compressor EQ around. As you can see, I'm having a bit of difficulty adjusting this control. The easiest way to control this knob is to click and drag over it slowly between the different settings. It truly provides a quick way to dial in compression settings without having to change every parameter on its own. We can turn off the compression and EQ using the buttons down here. The drop-down menu in the top right here allows us to switch between various presets. I really suggest checking out the engineer's presets because they get pretty specific in terms of the instrument you're recording, whether it be voice, drums, bass, piano, etc. Below the compression controls, we have a box simply labeled DM. We can't do anything with this. It's just informing us where the outputs for direct monitoring are in the signal chain. Next, we have the reverb control. Clicking and dragging allows us to raise and lower the amount of signal sent to the RevX reverb send. Just like with the compression, we can click on the E to edit the reverb. Before we talk about these 2 buttons at the bottom, we need to take a look at this switch on the right here. It has 3 positions: top, middle, and bottom. Notice that there's a line tapping off into the main signal chain that comes down to the selector, and then down to this picture of a fader. The fader represents the actual signal going to the computer. The arrow down here represents the signal going to our monitoring setup, which would include the headphone outputs of the MR816. As you can see, when it's set to the middle setting, the signal goes directly from the input to the computer, but it goes through all of these effects before it reaches the output jacks of the hardware. When it's set to the top, the effects section is removed from the chain altogether, so it won't be recorded or heard with monitoring. When it's set to the bottom, this effects section will be applied to both signals. I would advise you to use the top or middle setting unless you really love the sound of the compression and want to print it to a track. Again, you can always do this later. Clicking on the headphones button at the bottom allows us to adjust the level of the headphones output. You can also control the headphones level using the 2 big silver dials on the front of the MR816. Clicking on this heading allows us to adjust the reverb time and type as well as change the return level. We can also adjust the master levels from this window as well as a few settings. One of my favorite things about this device doesn't occur in this window at all. Close down the mixer. The Quick Connect function on the front panel also allows us to instantly route tracks on the fly without the VST Connections window. Just select a track, then click on one of the Quick Connect buttons on the front of the MR816 that you want to use as the input. It's as easy as that. Have fun exploring and playing with the MR816. It's a great sounding device and works so brilliantly with Cubase.